I've touched on it a bit. I'm a listening detective. I've spent the last 30 years in roles where I've been responsible for motivating, managing and mentoring people to achieve their goals. I've been a bank manager, a Slim and Well consultant, an area manager looking after 25 franchisees, and 12 years ago I set up my own company as a coach. And what I've learned over the years is ultimately we're going through change, and we all need different kinds of listening at different times. So we've already heard from Debbie and Deborah, and Sandy, that they'll deal with trauma. If it's changed from the past, you need to do one kind of listening. But I tend to work with people who think that coaching is what they want. They want to set a goal, but they have to be okay with letting go of stuff in order to move forward. So today I want to talk to you about the things that I've noticed over the last 12 years when I've really paid attention. What was the difference between the clients who said, this is what I want to do, and they did it, and those that didn't? And for each one of these principles, I had to change the way that I listened, and that coaching wasn't always the answer. So the first principle is purpose. The people who did what they said they were going to do, the way they made their decisions was it was purpose driven. They understood the impact of what they were going to do on their family, their business, some even the community, and sometimes even globally. So the thing that they're doing was bigger than them. Does that make sense? It wasn't just, so if they were going to eat an apple rather than a bar of chocolate, they knew that eating an apple would give them more energy and make them live longer. It meant they'd be a good role model to their children. It meant they'd have more patience and tolerance and more vitality in their business, which meant they'd deliver and help more customers. And if they could help more customers, they would change the way that people do electronics or websites in the local area, which meant that globally we'd be better people because we were achieving more. So it was definitely about, it was more than just them when they make a decision. But the most common person who didn't do what they said they're going to do was when their decision didn't involve themselves. It was always about everybody else. So I tend to work with people pleasers, people who are afraid of conflict, afraid of upsetting people. If your decision doesn't involve your own well-being, your system will sabotage you. Your own system won't let you do it. So just check when you make a decision, does it include you, or is it all in the benefit of everybody else? And some people can sustain that for 30, 40 years. And I tend to work with people in their 40s or 50s where they're sick of it and then are ready for change. So just check in. If you're not doing what you said you're going to do, are you doing what you really want and what's good for you? Principle number 2 is process. Number one reason why you won't do it is because you don't know how to do it. You don't know what to do. So if you know you want to be healthier, fitter, financially successful, you don't know how to get from where you are to where you want to be. And the people who do what they said they're going to do, usually they'd either, once they've made the decision, they go, oh, that's what I've got to do. Oh, I know how to do that. I can do it. So they had confidence in the process to get from where they were now to where they want to be. Those who had never done it before, though, the thing that really stood out for me was they were really confident to learn things, or they were confident to ask for help. So the people who didn't do what they were going to do were people who didn't know themselves well enough and didn't value that every strength they've got can also be a weakness. I love to talk. Not everybody likes it. I can also listen. And some people do like to be asked questions and some people don't. So recognizing who you are and how you do you, the order you do things, can give you more confidence. People who don't take action often don't know themselves, and they're busy asking everybody else, how would you do this? How would you do it? And they never stop and listen and go, actually, where did my first client come from? How did I get that client? What was the first thing I did? What was the second thing I did? They spend more time listening to everybody else's process rather than listening to how they do them. Principle number 3, progress. People who do what they say they're going to do can not only predict in advance how they're going to measure their success, going to know how they're going to know when things are progressing. They've also got the ability to look back and notice how far they've come. People who don't do what they say they're going to do often just notice what they haven't done and what's not happening rather than noticing what is working and even the smallest of changes. I started out as a mums and daughter relationship coach, and I particularly also had a challenging time with my own daughter. And one of the things I had to measure was I was able to listen for 3 minutes this time before she started screaming. The next time I went to her, it was 4 minutes. The fact she screamed for 3 hours was still happening, but the progress was I now got 4 minutes of listening. And when she was screaming, I was also hearing what she thought love was. So I managed to get this and this. And sometimes you have to feel through all the stuff that's not working to notice the progress. The other thing with progress is the people who measure it well don't just do tangibles. So yes, the coach that does numbers, you're right, people don't know how to interpret numbers, they don't know how to take that feedback on board, but sometimes we rely purely on whether we've got enough money in the bank, how many sales we've had, to know whether we're successful. But often success is also an emotional need. So how do you measure progress through your emotions? And how I do that with clients is to do metaphors. So if you were really confident, that would be like what? And if you've got a metaphor for that and you've got lack of confidence, it's like what you can start to see changes through the way your imagery and your representation of yourself changes. So people who do what they say they're going to do know in advance how they will measure the emotional change as well as the tangibles like profits, losses, etc. So think today about anything you're trying to do. Do you know how you'll know if there's progress going on? Principle number 4 is patterns. To get to know yourself, you'll start to notice your patterns. Most people who don't do what they say they're going to do tend to notice all the things that they do wrong. Oh, I've got a habit of starting things and not finishing them. Oh, I can't start with a blank canvas, but I'm really going blank. But instead of noticing, well, if you start lots of things and don't finish them, that means you're really good at starting things. So if you start to notice your patterns of what you do well and what is happening when it's working, people who do what they say they're going to do can not only catch themselves when things are not working, they can also catch themselves when things are working. And when you start to know your patterns, and there's some scientific evidence, if you know 3 or 4 of your models, then you start to know the DNA, you'll know your process, how you do you. The great thing about knowing yourself at pattern level is you don't have to overthink it anymore. You can just trust yourself to do it because it's ingrained, it's who you are, and it's how you show up in the world. So think about your patterns right now that you're aware of. Are they all the ones you criticize yourself for? Are all the gorgeousness that you can absolutely depend on yourself to do that because it's just in your DNA and that's how you show up, but from a perspective of strength and things that work. Principle number 5, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, I forgot what it was. Party. And this was the one I was late. I was late to the party for this one. I knew how to do purpose, process. I was really good at problem solving. But people who do what they say they're going to do, what I discovered they had that I didn't have, and I didn't define this out till 2012, is they had people in their party who could see them at their worst and never lost sight of them at their best. They could have a snotty heap and crying, and this person just knew that they were doing well. So you have to have a party of people where you can be vulnerable, where you can be true. And I was at a point in my life where my husband had a heart attack 4 years ago, where he was the only person I ever revealed how tough I was finding stuff. I never told anybody. As far as I was concerned, you actually had a professional front. I didn't want to bother my friends. I had lots of people who saw me as their friend, by the way, but because I would help them, but I wouldn't allow myself to be helped. So I wouldn't let people know that I was struggling, so I didn't want to feel vulnerable. So people who do what they say they're going to do, have people around them where they can talk to them. And it's more than one. It's not just your life partner, where the only person you're venting or downloading to on a daily basis. You've got a circle of people that you can say how it really is in your world. And it takes courage if you've not done that before, but I highly recommend you develop the ability to ask for help rather than always having to pay for it. This is about people that you can talk to when you're at your worst. And one of the things I'd say to you is get to know what you need to hear and see when you're at your worst. So I'm not very good with sympathy. If you feel sorry for me, sometimes when people are really sympathetic for me, that snap me out of it because I can't stand people feeling sorry for me. But equally, my husband, I had to train him in some ways to say to him, like, if I'm moaning about what's not working and this isn't going well and I'm getting myself really upset, the best thing you can do to me is ask me 2 questions. Either ask me, what would you like to have happen? So that I get focused back on purpose and what do I actually want, or ask me what is working so I can start to measure progress. Because at that point when I'm at my worst, my brain is in survival state and I can't make decisions. And the only thing I need is to hear or see something that's going to settle my state so that I can get back to making decisions. So when you're at your worst, what do you need to hear and see? And have you got the people around you, that party of people that can support you? Principle number, what am I on now? 6, pause. Most of the people I work with are doers and they're action takers. And so when they get stuck and they can't take action, they get really frustrated. They feel like they're failing. They often see that as a sign of not being successful, not achieving, not having got that sense of purpose. It feels like it's a waste of a day or a waste of time. And what I will say to you, having now modeled people who are working at their best, learning at their best and living their best, there is never a model that doesn't involve rest. So whatever your form of rest is, you have to learn to pause and you have to be okay with moments of silence. Where you can just listen to your inner thoughts. Be okay with resting. Your form of rest, mine is, I like doing. So I will do colouring, I will do arts and crafts. And I've only really rediscovered this in the last 2 or 3 years, is because I used to do stuff, not because it was the right thing to be doing, but I was doing in order not to feel. I was doing to keep myself busy, because actually when you go through change, it's uncomfortable and it's stressful on your system at times. So you have to be consciously aware of why you're doing what you're doing, know the purpose, know the process, know your patterns, and know whether it's going for progress. But I'd invite you, if you are a doer and you're getting stressed, you're not getting things done, it's probably because you're blimmin' knackered and your system is saying, just take a rest. So if you're not doing it, maybe you just do need to go to bed and have some more sleep. Maybe you do need to stop and create a really healthy meal for yourself and actually eat stuff that's going to energize you. So think about what works for you? What's your patterns for rest, restore, and recharge? And I've gone over, I'm 11 minutes, but one of the last ones, so I'm going to just quickly do that. And the last one is push. Sometimes the only way you're going to get something done is to push through the uncomfortable part of the unfamiliar parts of change. Your brain is always going to be in conflict between wanting things to stay the same and needing things to change. We like certainty and we like variety in equal measure as human beings. And there's loads of change going on outside, we might want more inner change to be settled and have no change. And if there's not enough change going on, we get bored. So whenever change is happening, there's going to be an uncomfortable phase because it's unfamiliar. And too many people wait to feel confident when actually confident is on the other side of action. And so if you know your process, you know your patterns, and you know how to measure progress, you'll know, oh, this uncomfortable feeling isn't because I shouldn't be doing it and I need to trust my intuition. This is just called change, and it's okay to feel uncomfortable. It's temporary and it will pass. And that's when you push through. But too many people in my experience are pushing through the uncomfortable feelings because actually they're trying to do what everybody else is telling them to do rather than doing what works for them. And you have to learn to listen to tell the difference between pushing through just discomfort of change and pushing through trying to be somebody you're not to please other people. So that's my 7 principles of motivated action. And I've gone over, but I'm hopefully not too much.